While we may be heading into the silly season, real news is still breaking, and it is even more serious than Joe Biden trying to say the words United States of America.
We just have to get up. As long as we keep the faith, summon hope, and get back up and remember who in the hell we are. We're the United States of America. That's who we are. We're the U.S.
The United States of America got it. Yes, that's right. He was so ready to serve another 4 years. I don't know why he dropped out. But put that aside, because there's another blast from the past who's also back in the news this week. Yeah, it's this guy. Yeah, that's right. It's him, the manly man himself, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, who is making headlines not because of his old campaign trail boss, Kamala Harris, throwing him under the bus, but because he is now upset that he has been called out for failing to do anything about what could be absolutely billions of dollars in welfare fraud committed against his state, allegedly by large segments of Minnesota's burgeoning Somali community. Now, last week on this program, I mentioned how President Donald Trump called Walz, in Trump's words, in a Truth Social post, quote, seriously retarded. And I've got to say, this is a terrible and offensive slur about people who have intellectual disabilities, not the sort of thing that should ever be used about someone like Tim Walz, who famously earned the nickname Tampon Tim after he forced his state schools to put feminine hygiene products in the boys' bathroom. So, honestly, Mr. President, do better. But the problem is now, according to Walz, and this is very serious, people are apparently driving past his house yelling the slur. Guess what? He's not happy about it.
This creates danger. And I'll tell you what, in my time on this, I'd never seen this before. People driving by my house and using the R word in front of people. This is shameful. And I have yet to see an elected official, a Republican elected official, say, you're right, that's shameful. He should not say it. So look, I'm worried. We know how these things go. They start with taunts, they turn to violence. So deeply concerned.
Yeah, starts with taunts, ends with violence, you say. Really, because, you know, it wasn't that long ago that instead of slamming their windows shut and pulling pillows over their ears to block out nasty words, the Walz family was actually throwing open their doors and windows to enjoy the smell of real violence, not just hurty words. Here's Tim Walz's wife speaking about what they did during the Black Lives Matter riots, which kicked off in their home city of Minneapolis and involved burning down the downtown in the name of racial justice for George Floyd, or something.
I would say those first days, you know, when there were riots, I could smell the burning tires. And that was a very real thing. And I kept the windows open for as long as I could because I felt like that was such a touchstone of what was happening.
Ah, yes, a touchstone of what was happening. And you know, Tim absolutely agrees with her because, well, I suspect it would be dangerous to do otherwise. But speaking of Tim Walz and saying mean things, there was something about his outrage about being called the R word that rang a little false because I seem to remember back during the campaign last year, Walz did an awful lot of, you know, spicy, non-inclusive language himself.
Elon's on that stage, jumping around, skipping like a dip on these things. You know it.
Yeah, what would Tim Walz know about skipping around the stage looking like, well, anyway. Walz, of all people, also tried to call Trump and Vance weird and regularly suggested that Donald Trump was a fascist.
The former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Mark Milley, said, no one has ever been more dangerous to this country than Donald Trump, and he is a fascist to his core.
Ooh, sounds like some pretty hurty words there, and more recently, he's equated ICE agents to Adolf Hitler's secret police.
Donald Trump's modern-day Gestapo is scooping folks up off the streets. They're in unmarked vans, wearing masks, being shipped off to foreign torture dungeons.
Anyway, the hypocrisy is outstanding and certainly entertaining, but it must not be allowed to be distracting because remember, as I said at the start of this segment, this whole Walz and the R-word thing started because of news about welfare fraud of all varieties connected to the Somali community in his state. It's so bad that even the New York Times has taken notice, saying fraud swamped the state on Tim Walz's watch. Some are suggesting that the fraud could amount as much as $8 billion missing from state coffers, and that much of that money may have been sent back to Somalia to help prosecute a civil war that creates, guess what, even more refugees for places like Walz's Minnesota. But never mind, because until now, Walz was perfectly happy to play the ethnic politics game and suck up to the Somali community, though that is now coming back to haunt him, as he and Minnesota Congressman Ilhan Omar have been caught out hugging up to, among others, an illegal Somali migrant who has been caught up in the scandal.
All right, this news just breaking moments ago. Fox News has obtained photos of one of the Somali illegal immigrants wrapped up in the Minnesota fraud scandal, posing with several high-profile Minnesota Democrats, including Congresswoman Ilhan Omar and Governor Tim Walz. The man pictured is Abdul Dahir Ibrahim. He entered the country in 2000 and has had an order for removal since 2004. He also has a prior conviction in Canada for asylum and welfare fraud.
But remember, in Walz's world, you mustn't say anything about the welfare fraud or its connection to the Somalis because, well, that would be another R word. And this tight bond went so far that some have even suggested that Walz was making a nod to Somalia when he unveiled the state's new flag back in 2024.
All right, ready. Whoa, wait a minute. There, that's better.
Yes, any connection between that flag we just saw and the Somali flag, we are assured, is just plain coincidence by the designers. As was, I suppose, the fact that a very smart, very not weird at all governor like Tim Walz could have played up to the same ethnic community that was defrauding his state of billions of dollars without having any idea what was going on. But I can tell you this much, though. There are going to be a few more truth bombs in this story waiting to go off.